Transfer of Property Act. The, the Transfer of Property Act 1882 covers movable property, immovable property. The transfer of property was enacted in the year 1882. Within the meaning of Section 3 of the Transfer of Property Act, the immovable property does not include only standing timber, growing crops, or grass. Actionable claims shared in company. Under Section 3 of Transfer of Property Act, the following does not amount to notice. Registration where the instrument is not compulsory, bill registered. Attested in relation of instrument means and shall be deemed always have been attested by at least two witnesses. The property is comprehensive term including copyright. Immovable property does not include timber, true, which is not immovable property. Growing crops. Under Section 3 Transfer of Property Act, immovable property include none of these. An instrument is defined in the Section 3 of Transfer of Property Act means non-testamentary instrument. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, a person is said to have notice of a fact when he actually knows the fact. Which one of the following section of Transfer of Property define notice? Section 3. The Privy Council decision in Tilakdhari Lal versus Khedan Lal related to Section 3 of the Transfer of Property Act. In Transfer of Property Act, immovable property does not include standing timber. Which out of the following immovable property according to TP Act 1882? Standing timber. The following is not a immovable property. Royalty. Which one of the following pair is not correctly matched? Immovable property. Section 2. Correctly match are charged. Section 100 marshalling by subsequent purchaser. Section 56 mortgage debt 134. Which one of the following immovable property is under Transfer of Property Act? Equity of redemption, a hurt, a mortgage debt, all are immovable property. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, the term attested means attested by at least two or more witnesses. Immovable property does not include standing timber. Which of these immovable property, as per the provision of Transfer of Property Act? Fruit trees. Under Section 3 of Transfer of Property Act, attested in the relation to the instrument means attested by at least two witnesses. Immovable property does not include grass, growing crops, standing timber. Which one of the following is not immovable property? Standing timber. According to Section 3 of Transfer of Property Act 1882, instrument means non-testamentary instrument. Standing timber under Transfer of Property Act 1882 is not immovable property. Instrument under the Transfer of Property Act is Property Act 1882 means non-testamentary instrument. For a valid attestation or instrument under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, it is necessary that each attesting witness must be signed instrument in the presence of executant. Which is not immovable property? growing crops. According to Transfer of Property Act, immovable property does not include standing timber, growing crops, and grass. Which one of the following property has not recognized by the court as immovable property? Right to worship. Which one of the following is the immovable property? Profit a pendre. Profit a pendre means benefit arises out of the land. The chapter and section of the Transfer of Property Act which related to contract shall not be taken as a part of contract and supplementary to Registration Act. The provision of Transfer of Property Act apply to the immovable property mostly, however, some provision apply to immovable property as well as movable property. Subject matter of transfer of property by way of sale under transfer of property can be only immovable property. Things embedded in the earth have been included under the Transfer of Property Act. It defined is a definition of attached to the earth. Who may make rule consistent with the provision of TP Act? State government. Which among the following is immovable property as per section 3 of Transfer of Property Act? Fruit tree. According to the Transfer of Property Act, immovable property does not include growing crops. Rule against perpetuity is given by Transfer of Property Act does not affect the general rule of Mohammedan law. Which one of the following is not immovable property? A decree which gives right of the sale of immovable property of the husband. Chapter Transfer of Property Act 1882 come into the force on none of these. TP Act come into the force on 17 February 1882. Transfer of property came into the force on July 1, 1882. Transfer of Property Act has no relation with air, water, light, all of this. Chapter 2 Transfer of Property by Act of Party 5 to 53. Chapter 2 of Transfer of Property shall not deem to effect of any rule of Mohammedan law. Transfer of Property Act govern transfer of between the party only. Under Section 5 of TP Act, the person include company and association or the body of individual. According to Section 5 of Transfer of Property Act, term living person include company or association or body of individual. According to Section 5 of TP Act, the person include company or association or a individual. Which one of the following section of TP Act define Transfer of Property Act? Section 5. In respect of the transfer of property under Transfer of Property Act, which one of the following statement is true? One cannot transfer the property to the self. The expression living person used in Section 5 of the Transfer of Property Act includes company, association, incorporate, body or individual, which is not covered by the term Transfer of Property Act. Family settlement. Which one of the following is not a transfer of property? According to TP Act, about abandonment of claim of property. Which one of the following is not in the term of living person under Section 5 of the TP Act? Company, association, body of individual. Which one of the following section of Transfer of Property Act define transfer of property? Section 5. Under Section 5 of TP Act, living person does include company also. True. What property cannot be transferred under Section 6 of TP Act 1882? An easement apart from the dominant heritage, an interest in the property, enjoyment of the owner personally, a right of the future maintenance whatsoever manner arises, secured or determined. Change of heir apparent. succeeding of estate cannot be transferred. Which provision of transfer of property of Act stated that? Section 6. Which one of the following statement is correct? A mere right to sue cannot be transferred. Who one of the following section of the Transfer of Property Act provide that mere right to sue cannot be transferred? Section 6. Under the provision of Transfer of Property Act, the unborn child acquired vested interest in upon his birth. Which one of these cannot lawfully transferred as per the Transfer of Property Act? Salary and public officer. Salary of public officer. As per Section 6 of TP Act, an easement be transferred apart from dominant heritage cannot be. Under the provision of Transfer of Property Act, an easement can be transferred apart from the dominant heritage. The statement is true. Cannot be transferred. Which property cannot be transferred? Public officer office may right to succeed, may right to re-entry. How many exceptions are mentioned under Section 6 of Transfer of Property Act? 10. Which interest is not transferable? Mere species of succession. Mere species succession. The expression species succession means mere chance and hope of succession. Which cannot be transferred? Mere right to sue on the basis of agreement of sale. Which one of the following property cannot be transferred? Right to future maintenance. Which one of the following transferable under the Transfer of Property Act 1882? None of these. Point out the correct answer. Under Transfer of Property Act 1882, the salary of public officer cannot be transferred. A transfer of 5,000 to his niece, a transfer to rupees 5,000 to his niece if she will desert her husband. The transfer is void. Which one of the following properties may be transferred? Immovable property. Which one of the following is not an essential element of a valid transfer of the property? Transferee may not be competent to take the transfer. The right to future maintenance in whatsoever manner arising and secured or determined cannot be transferred. What is a transfer under Transfer of Property Act? An easement along with the dominant heritage. Whether the transfer can be made in the favor of unborn person? Yes, by machinery of trust. On a transfer of his benefit, an unborn person acquired a vested interest in upon his birth. What kind of property is transferable? Any kind of property, if not prohibited by law. Which one of the following interests is not transferable? Space succession. What may be transferred? A right to re-entry to the owner for the breach of condition of subsequent. Person competent to transfer a property have been defined under which one of the following section of TP? Section 7. Which one of the following section of TP Act 1882 say transfer of property may be made without writing in every case in which writing is not expressly required by law? Section 9. Which one of the following section of the Transfer of Property Act related to oral transfer? Section 9. Section 9 of TP Act is provided under transfer can be oral without writing also. In Transfer of Property Act, condition of oral transfer are provided under Section 10. Section 9. Section 9 of Transfer of Property Act provided transfer can be oral also. Section 9 of Transfer of Property Act, oral transfer are conditionally valid. Under the Transfer of Property Act 1882, a writing is not expressly required by law. A transfer of property may be made without writing in every case. Whether an oral transfer of the property is legal under the provision of Transfer of Property Act. Yes, in certain cases. Condition restraining alienation under Section 10 of TP Act is make the condition invalid but transfer remain valid. Which one of the following is invalid as per the Section 10 of Transfer of Property Act 1882? A condition not to sell during lifetime of the transferee. Under Transfer of Property Act 1882, a transfer rupees 5,000 to B on the condition that he shall marry with the consent of CDE. E died, B marries with the consent of C and D. The condition is marriage is valid. The absolute restraint of transfer of property is void under Section 10 of Transfer of Property Act. Section 10 of Transfer of Property Act provides for condition restraining alienation. Condition restraining alienation of transfer of property is given under Section 10 of Transfer of Property Act.